June 4th, 1942, 04:30 a.m. Northwest of Midway Atoll. On the exposed bridge of the Imperial Japanese Navy's flagship Akagi, the pre-dawn wind is a cold knife. It cuts through the dark uniforms whipping the Hinomaru flag on the mast, but Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo feels only the thrum of the engines. Below his feet, the 36,000-ton carrier vibrates with contained power. He is the most feared naval commander on Earth. He stands at the head of Kido Butai, the First Air Fleet. 6 carriers, 4 of them, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, are arrayed within sight. Dark giants against the gray-black water. For 6 months, this fleet has been the invincible sword of the Empire, carving a new world from the ruins of the old. Pearl Harbor, Rabaul, the sinking of the Prince of Wales and Repulse, the devastating raid on Darwin, the humiliation of the British Royal Navy in the Indian Ocean. They have not been scratched. Their pilots, hardened in the skies over China, are the undisputed masters of the air. Their Mitsubishi A6M2 Zero fighters are untouchable. Beside Nagumo, his brilliant, gaunt-faced air planner, Commander Minoru Genda, anxiously checks his watch. This is his plan. A complex 3-stage operation designed by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto himself. Its goal is not simply to seize the tiny American outpost of Midway. The true objective is to lure the remnants of the U.S. Pacific Fleet specifically, its carriers, into a final, decisive battle of annihilation. The intelligence is clear. The Americans have only 2, perhaps 3 carriers left. Kido Butai has 4, with 2 more in support. The odds are not just favorable, they are absolute. At 04:30, Nagumo gives the nod. The flight decks, illuminated by dull red lights, erupt. All aircraft, commence launch. The roar of 108 engine Zeros, Val dive bombers, and Kate torpedo bombers shatters the morning. One by one, the planes scream down the wooden decks and lift into the darkness, led by Lieutenant Joichi Tomonaga. Their target, the unsinkable aircraft carrier of Midway Island. On Akagi's bridge, the mood is one of clinical confidence. The second wave of 93 aircraft is already being prepared on the hangar decks below. This is Nagumo's hammer, held in reserve. Following doctrine, these planes are armed with Type 91 torpedoes and armor-piercing bombs, specifically for the American ships they expect to find. The fleet waits. The sun begins to rise, painting the horizon a sickly yellow. The first reports are of American incompetence. High-altitude B-17s from Midway attempt a bombing run. Their payloads splash harmlessly into the ocean, miles away. Laughter echoes on the bridge. Then, just after 07:01 a.m., 2 messages arrive almost simultaneously. The first, from Lieutenant Tomonaga, is broadcast to the fleet. The attack on Midway is complete, but a second strike is required. The airfield is not neutralized. Nagumo frowns. This is a complication. The American airbase is still a threat. But where is the American fleet? His scouts are out, sweeping the empty ocean, but have reported nothing. He faces a fatal choice. Does he wait for the American carriers to appear, keeping his hammer armed for ships? Or does he eliminate the immediate threat from Midway's airfield? His chief of staff, Rear Admiral Ryunosuke Kusaka, urges caution. Wait, Admiral. Our primary target is the fleet. But Genda is impatient. The Midway airbase is a hornet's nest. We must destroy it now. Nagumo makes the decision that will seal his fate. Rearm the second wave, he orders. Swap torpedoes for high-explosive land bombs. We will strike Midway again. The klaxons blare. Down in the cramped, humid hangar decks of Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, the order creates chaos. Armorers curse as they work, manhandling 800-pound torpedoes off the planes and wheeling over 800-kilogram land bombs. The lethal ordnance, unplugged and volatile, begins to stack up in the bays next to high-octane fuel lines. The decks are a powder keg, and the fuse has just been lit. 07:15 a.m. Hangar deck, IJN Soryu. The air is thick with gasoline fumes and sweat. Maintenance crews, stripped to their undershirts, wrestle with bomb trolleys. They have just spent 45 minutes loading land bombs onto the Kate torpedo bombers. Now the order is reversed. The land bombs must come off. The armor-piercing bombs and torpedoes must go on. The torpedoes are stacked precariously, unsecured. The high-explosive land bombs they just removed are pushed to the side of the elevator platforms, too dangerous and heavy to move back to the magazines in the heat of battle. The hangar deck of a Japanese carrier is a single enclosed steel box, unlike American carriers, which have open sides. Any explosion will be contained, amplifying its destructive force. Suddenly, the ship's anti-aircraft guns open up. A deafening thump, thump, thump. The crews don't even flinch. This has been happening for an hour. At 07:10, a flight of 6 TBF Avenger torpedo bombers, flying from Midway, had made a desperate run at the fleet. The Zeros of the Combat Air Patrol, led by aces like Saburo Sakai, fell on them like wolves. 5 were shot down. 1, crippled and burning, dropped its torpedo, which missed. Minutes later, 4 B-26 Marauders, clumsy medium bombers jury-rigged with torpedoes, tried the same. They too were annihilated. On Akagi's bridge, Nagumo and Genda watched the bright orange fireballs blossom in the sky. This is not a battle, it is a slaughter. The reports confirm their superiority. These uncoordinated suicidal attacks from Midway only reinforce Nagumo's decision. The land base must be neutralized. But just as the rearming chaos reaches its peak, at 07:28 a.m. a message crackles in the radio room. It's from Scout Plane Number 4, launched late from the cruiser tone. Sight 10 enemy ships bearing 010 degrees, 240 miles from Midway. Course 150, speed over 20 knots. Silence on the bridge. 10 enemy ships. Nagumo's blood runs cold. He needs to know what ships. Ascertain ship types, he signals back. The wait is agonizing. The rearming continues, but now with a sickening uncertainty. At 08:09 a.m., the Tone Scout updates. Enemy ships are 5 cruisers and 5 destroyers. A collective sigh of relief. Kusaka claps Genda on the back. No carriers. The American fleet is not here. It must be a surface remnant. Continue rearming for the Midway strike, Nagumo commands, his voice firm again. Then, at 08:20 a.m., the message that changes the war arrives. The Tone Scout, flying closer, radios. Enemy force accompanied by what appears to be 1 aircraft carrier. 1 carrier. The words hang in the air. Genda's face turns white. If there is one, there are more. The bait has been taken. The American fleet is here, and Nagumo's entire second wave is on the hangar decks, armed with the wrong weapons, in the middle of a complex rearming procedure. Halt! Nagumo roars. Reverse the order. All planes rearm for anti-ship attack. Give them torpedoes. Now. This third command is a death sentence. The crews below, exhausted and confused, are now ordered to swap the bombs back for the torpedoes. The hangar decks of Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu become a scrapyard of unsecured ordnance. Land bombs, armor-piercing bombs, and torpedoes are all piled together next to pressurized fuel lines. And then another crisis. At 08:37 a.m., lookouts spot a new formation of planes. Not enemy planes, their own. Lieutenant Tomonaga's first strike wave is returning from Midway, low on fuel, shot up, demanding to land. Nagumo is trapped. He cannot launch his newly armed torpedo planes because his flight decks are not clear. He cannot land his returning planes because his hangar decks are full of bombers being rearmed. The clock is ticking. His pilots will ditch in the sea if he doesn't recover them. He must make a choice. He chooses to save his pilots. Clear the decks, he orders at 09:18 a.m. Land the Midway strike force. We will launch the attack as soon as they are recovered. It is the final, fatal delay. For the next 45 minutes, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu turn into the wind to recover their aircraft. The Zeros, Vals, and Kates land, one by one, and are rushed below to the already packed hangars. The moment the last plane is aboard at 10:10 a.m., the decks are clear. The order is given. Prepare to launch strike against enemy carriers. On Akagi's deck, the first Zero fighters are being wheeled into position. The wind is perfect. In 5 minutes, the entire force will be airborne and unstoppable. Nagumo looks at his watch. 10:20 a.m. He has weathered the storm. He has found the enemy. His victory is at hand. At that exact moment, 10:21 a.m., a lookout on Akagi shouts, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Hell divers from the northeast!" Nagumo looks up. The sun glints off the wings of 36 American planes. They are not at altitude. They are here, plunging almost vertically, their engines screaming, their 1,000-pound bombs already falling. 10:22 a.m., above the Kido Butai, Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey, leading SBD Dauntless dive bombers from the USS Enterprise, has been flying on fumes, searching for the carriers. His squadron, VB-6, is lost, their fuel critical. He was about to turn back when he spotted the wake of a lone Japanese destroyer, the Arashi, speeding northeast. McCluskey gambled, followed it, and found the entire Japanese fleet. At the same moment, Lieutenant Commander Max Leslie from the USS Yorktown arrives from a different bearing. They have found Nagumo at his single most vulnerable moment. The Zeros of the Combat Air Patrol are not there to stop them. They are hundreds of feet below, near the surface of the ocean, feasting on the wreckage of the American torpedo bombers from Torpedo Squadron 8, VT-8. Those 15 TBD Devastator planes, slow and obsolete, had pressed a suicidal attack without fighter cover. All were shot down. They bought McCluskey and Leslie their window. On the bridge of the Akagi, Nagumo watches the first SBD, piloted by Lieutenant Earl Gallagher, peel off and dive. There is no time for the carriers to turn. There is no time for the anti-aircraft guns to find the range. The planes are in a 70-degree dive, the air screaming past their canopies. At 10:22 a.m., the first 1,000-pound bomb hits the flagship Kaga. It strikes the aft flight deck among the parked fueling Kate bombers. A second bomb hits near the forward elevator, and a third smashes into the bridge, instantly killing Captain Jisaku Okada and almost everyone on it. A fourth bomb, a 500-pounder, rips through the deck and explodes in the forward hangar. The effect is instantaneous. The bombshell hits the exact spot where the armorers had piled the 800-kilogram land bombs. The unsecured ordnance detonates in a sympathetic chain reaction. High-octane fuel lines rupture, spraying burning gasoline across the deck. The Kaga, from bow to stern, erupts in a sheet of white-hot flame. The men on the hangar deck are incinerated before they can even register the sound. Simultaneously, 300 miles to the south, Max Leslie's SBDs from Yorktown fall upon the Soryu. The Japanese carrier is turning hard to port, its anti-aircraft guns firing wildly. The first bomb hits, then the second, then a third. They tear through the wooden flight deck as if it were paper, landing directly in the Soryu's 2 hangar decks, which are packed tight with fueled and armed aircraft. The Soryu disappears in a blinding flash. The force of the explosion is so great it rips the forward aircraft elevator completely out of its housing and flings it against the ship's island. On the Akagi, Admiral Nagumo watches, his face a mask of disbelief. 2 of his finest carriers have vanished in less than 60 seconds. He opens his mouth to give an order, but no sound comes out. His own ship is still turning, trying to dodge. At 10:26 a.m., it is Akagi's turn. The dive bombers from Enterprise, led by Lieutenant Dick Best, make their run. The first bomb misses, splashing into the water. But the second bomb, a 1,000-pound armor piercer, strikes the Akagi amidships right on the centerline elevator. It penetrates the flight deck and explodes in the upper hangar, in the exact center of the 93 planes being prepared for the strike. It detonates the torpedoes. A colossal, rolling fireball consumes the hangar deck. The blast pressure buckles the flight deck upwards, curling it back like the lid of a tin can. On the bridge, the shockwave throws Nagumo and his staff against the bulkheads. The windows shatter. Commander Genda is thrown to the deck, his face bleeding. A second bomb, dropped by Best himself, hits the aft deck, igniting the remaining Zeros and turning the rear of the ship into an inferno. In less than 5 minutes, the core of the Imperial Japanese Navy's offensive power is gone. The Kaga is a floating blast furnace. The Soryu is a wreck, already listing, her crew abandoning ship. And the Akagi, Nagumo's flagship, is burning beneath his feet. The flames are so intense they are licking at the bridge structure itself. Rear Admiral Kusaka, his uniform torn, grabs Nagumo's arm. "Admiral, we must leave the ship. We must shift your flag." Nagumo doesn't move. He just stares into the smoke. He cannot comprehend what has happened. His mind, fixed on victory just moments before, is paralyzed by the totality of the disaster. He mutters over and over, "It can't be, it can't be." The invincible sword has been shattered, and Admiral Chuchi Nagumo, watching his life's work turn to cinders, knows in that single horrifying moment that the war is lost. 10:30 a.m. aboard the IJN Akagi. The flagship is a charnel house. The fire raging in the hangar deck is so hot it is cooking the men on the decks above. Explosions deep within the ship's hull rock the vessel every few seconds as ammunition cooks off. The heat on the bridge is unbearable. Smoke, thick and black, chokes the air, turning midday into a toxic twilight. Vice Admiral Nagumo stands frozen, staring at the compass binnacle. He is a man in a waking nightmare, deaf to the chaos around him. His chief of staff, Rear Admiral Kusaka, is frantic. The ship's steering is jammed, the fire mains are ruptured. The Akagi is dead in the water, a helpless, burning target. "Admiral, you must transfer your flag. The fleet is without a commander," Kusaka shouts, his voice hoarse. Nagumo shakes his head, as if clearing water from his ears. "The ship, the Akagi." "There is no Akagi!" Kusaka screams, grabbing his arm. "She is finished. If you stay here, you die with her, and the battle is over. We must fight!" Jenda, his face covered in blood from a shard of glass, joins in. "Sir, we must find the fourth carrier. We can still attack." Finally, the Admiral nods. The spell is broken, replaced by a deep, cold shame. His staff half drags, half carries him from the bridge, down the scorching ladders to a forward window. A rope is lowered. At 10:46 a.m., the man who commanded the attack on Pearl Harbor, the conqueror of the Pacific, ignominiously climbs down a rope, his imperial-issue sword banging uselessly against his leg. He drops into a launch boat, which speeds him away to the light cruiser Nagara. He never looks back, but the battle is not over. 10 miles to the north, sailing through a rain squall that protected her from the American dive bombers, is the fourth carrier, Hiryu the Flying Dragon. She is commanded by Rear Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi. He is everything Nagumo is not young, aggressive, impulsive, a true warrior who believes in victory or death. He has just watched, in stunned horror, as his 3 sister ships were turned into pillars of smoke. He knows the odds are now catastrophic, but he also knows where the enemy is. From the bridge of the Hiryu, Yamaguchi wastes no time. He raises his battle flag. He is now, in effect, commander of the Kido Butai. "Prepare all aircraft for immediate launch," he roars. "We will find the American carriers. We will avenge Kaga." At 10:54 a.m., just as Nagumo is climbing onto the Nagara, Hiryu's flight deck turns into the wind. There is no hesitation. There is only duty. 18 VAL dive bombers led by Lieutenant Michio Kobayashi and 6 escorting Zeros power down the deck. They climb into the sky, a tiny, desperate fist aimed at the heart of the American fleet. Their target is the one carrier the Japanese scouts had clearly identified, the USS Yorktown. Aboard the Yorktown, the mood is one of pure elation. "Carrier's burning! We got him! We got him!" The word has spread across the ship, but the elation is short-lived. At 11:52 a.m., the ship's primitive CXAM radar picks up a bogey, 30 miles out and closing fast. "All fighters, Vector 250. Bogey on the scope. This is not a drill." The Yorktown's combat air patrol, exhausted from their own morning sorties, turns to intercept. But Kobayashi's pilots are flying with a fatalistic fury. They punch through the American fighter screen. At 12:09 p.m., the klaxon on the Yorktown blares, enemy aircraft overhead. The ship's 5-inch guns erupt, throwing a curtain of black flak into the sky. But the Vals are already in their dives. They come down, one after another, through a storm of steel. The first bomb misses. The second misses. Then a 550-pound bomb, dropped by Kobayashi himself, hits the Yorktown Square on the flight deck, just aft of the number 2 elevator. It plunges 4 decks down and explodes in a crew berthing, starting a massive fire. Seconds later, another bomb smashes the funnel, severing the boiler uptakes. The Yorktown shudders, thick black smoke pouring from her stack. A third bomb hits the forward elevator, ripping a huge hole in the flight deck. Within minutes, the Yorktown is dead in the water, her boilers choked, her speed dropping to 0. She is a sitting duck. From the Hiryu, Admiral Yamaguchi receives Kobayashi's triumphant report. Enemy carrier hit, burning fiercely. Yamaguchi allows himself a grim smile. The score is being evened. Prepare the second wave, he orders. This time, the torpedo bombers? We will finish her. 14:26 p.m., 20 miles northeast of the Yorktown. Lieutenant Joichi Tomonaga leads the Hiryu's second wave. 10 Kate torpedo bombers and 6 Zero escorts. Tomonaga is already a hero, having led the first strike on Midway hours earlier. His own plane is damaged, its port fuel tank leaking. He knows this is a one-way trip. He is flying to die. His strike force breaks through the clouds and spots the American fleet, but the carrier they see is not the burning listing wreck reported by Kobayashi. This carrier is underway, making 20 knots, its deck patched, a small plume of smoke rising from its stack. Tomonaga's radio crackles. This is a new carrier. It is not the one we hit before. It is the Yorktown. In one of the greatest feats of damage control in naval history, her crews, led by the indomitable Lieutenant Commander Joseph Clifton, had performed a miracle. In under 2 hours, they had contained the fires, patched the flight deck, and most incredibly refired 3 of her boilers. The unsinkable Yorktown had been brought back from the dead. But she has been brought back just in time to be killed again. Tomonaga's pilots see their target. Commence torpedo attack! The Kates split into 2 groups, a classic anvil attack designed to trap the carrier from both port and starboard. The Yorktown's fighters, flying cap, are too late. They dive on the Japanese bombers, guns blazing, but the Kates are already in their final low-level runs, skimming just 50 feet above the water. Aboard the Yorktown, Captain Elliot Buckmaster orders a hard turn to starboard, trying to comb the torpedo wakes. It's no use. The Kates are too close, their drops perfect. At 14:42 p.m., the lookouts scream, "Torpedoes! Port beam!" 2 Type 91, long lance torpedoes, the deadliest in the world, slam into the Yorktown's port side. The ship leaps sideways as if struck by a giant's hammer. The explosions are devastating, ripping a 60-foot gash in her hull. All power is lost, instantly. The ship's generators are destroyed, the remaining boilers extinguished. The Yorktown shudders to a halt, a catastrophic 23-degree list immediately settling upon her. She is broken. Water pours into her engine rooms. On the bridge, Captain Buckmaster receives the reports. The list is increasing. The ship is top-heavy and unstable. She is going to capsize. At 14:55 p.m., his voice thick with emotion, he gives the order he thought he would never have to give. Abandon ship! Men begin to climb down ropes and jump into the oily water as the great carrier slowly dies. Back on the cruiser Nagara, Admiral Nagumo receives Tomonaga's final, triumphant report before his plane is shot down. Enemy carrier hit by 2 torpedoes, sinking. Nagumo allows himself a sliver of hope. This is a brutal, bloody day, but the tally is evening. His pilots have now, he believes, sunk 2 of the 3 American carriers. Kaga, Soryu, Akagi, all lost, but in exchange for 2 American carriers with the Hiryu still untouched. It is a Pyrrhic victory, but a victory nonetheless. He just needs to find the 3rd American carrier. From the Hiryu, Admiral Yamaguchi prepares to do just that. He has only a handful of planes left, 6 Zeros, 5 Val dive bombers, and 4 Kate torpedo bombers. A pitiful remnant, but he will launch them. He will find the last American carrier, the Enterprise, and destroy it, even if it costs him his ship and his life. He gives the order, prepare third strike, launch at 16:30. But as his crews race to arm this final suicidal wave, an American scout plane, a lone SBD Dauntless, is circling high above, hidden in the afternoon sun. It radios the Enterprise. One enemy carrier, bearing 323, distance 110 miles. She is undamaged. The Hiryu has been found. 16:45 p.m. Flight deck of the USS Enterprise. Admiral Raymond Spruance, the quiet, calculating mind now commanding Task Force 16, gives the order. There is no emotion in his voice, only iron. Launch the strike. On the deck of the Big E, a Frankenstein squadron is assembled. It is a composite force of 24 SBD Dauntless dive bombers. 10 are from the Enterprise. The other 14, led by Lieutenant Earl Gallagher, are from the Yorktown. These pilots are now officially homeless. Their ship is a sinking hulk 20 miles away. They are operating from a carrier that is not their own, their only remaining purpose to avenge their lost home. They are fueled, armed with 1,000-pound bombs, and filled with a cold, precise rage. They launch into the late afternoon sky, climbing into the glare of the setting sun, the very tactic the Japanese had perfected. Aboard the Hiryu, 17 hours p.m., Admiral Taman Yamaguchi stands on his bridge, watching his flight crew spot the last of his planes for the third strike. The sun is low, casting long shadows across the deck. He is minutes away from launching his final attack. He is unaware of the SBDs high above him, using his carrier's own shadow to mask their approach. A lookout's voice, high and panicked. Enemy dive bombers, directly overhead. Yamaguchi looks up. It is 10:22 a.m. all over again. The sky is full of plunging American planes, screaming down from 14,000 feet. Hiryu's few remaining Zeros climb desperately to intercept, but they are too few, too late. The ship's anti-aircraft guns fire with frantic, useless speed. The Hiryu turns hard, its wake churning the sea. But these are not the green pilots from Midway. These are the vengeful veterans from Yorktown. At 17:01 p.m., the first 1,000-pound bomb, dropped by Gallagher himself, smashes into the Hiryu's deck, just forward of the island. It hits the forward elevator, ripping the entire 30-ton platform from its moorings and smashing it, upside down. Against the bridge, the explosion decapitates the flight deck. On the cruiser Nagara, miles away, Admiral Nagumo is waiting for a signal from Yamaguchi's third strike. Instead, his horrified staff hands him binoculars. He raises them to his eyes just in time to see the Hiryu take its mortal wounds. His last hope. His last carrier. A second bomb dropped by Enterprise pilot Ensign Wilmer Dick. Best the same man who hit the Akagi slams into the deck, penetrating to the hangar. Then a third. Then a fourth. The bombs detonate among Hiryu's own fully fueled and armed strike force. The Kates and Vals explode, turning the hangar into an inferno. The chain reaction of torpedoes and bombs rips the ship apart from the inside. Massive 100-foot-high flames engulf the entire forward half of the ship. On the bridge, the glass shatters. The compass is destroyed. Admiral Yamaguchi is thrown against the bulkhead, but he stands up, unharmed, and brushes the debris from his uniform. He looks at his ship. It is, in just 2 minutes, a total wreck. The forward deck has collapsed. The island is surrounded by a sea of burning gasoline. He knows with a warrior's certainty that the ship will not survive, and he knows with an admiral's clarity that the war is over. The Kido Butai is annihilated. He turns to his flag captain, Tomeo Kaku. "Captain," he says, his voice calm amidst the roar of the fire. "We have fought well, but the ship is finished. I will remain with her." Captain Kaku nods. "I will join you, Admiral." They look out at the setting sun, at the smoke from their own funeral pyre, as the order is given for the rest of the crew to abandon ship. June 5th, 1942, 02:30 a.m., the middle of the Pacific Ocean, The night is starless, choked with the smoke of the dying fleet. The sea is littered with debris, patches of burning oil, and the floating bodies of thousands of Japanese sailors. Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo sits alone in the flag plot of the cruiser Nagara. He has not spoken in hours. He just stares at the map, at the last known positions of his 4 carriers. They are all gone. The Akagi, his proud flagship, had burned uncontrollably for hours. Nagumo had hoped to save her, to tow her home as a symbol. But at dusk the fires were nearing her magazines. She was a lost cause. At 04:50 a.m., just as the sky begins to lighten, Nagumo gives the most painful order of his life. Scuttle the Akagi. His own destroyers, his escorts, fire Type 91 torpedoes into the hull of their own flagship. Nagumo stands on the Nagara's bridge, his back to his staff, as he watches the Akagi rear up, silhouetted against the dawn and slide beneath the waves. The Kaga and Soryu are already gone, consumed by internal explosions and scuttled by their escorts hours earlier. And the Hiryu, the flying dragon, has been burning all night. Aboard the destroyer Kazagumo, her surviving crew, those who obeyed the order to abandon shipwatch in agony. Admiral Yamaguchi and Captain Kaku are still on the ruined bridge. They have tied themselves to the binnacle to ensure they go down with the ship. As the Hiryu prepares for her final plunge, the crew on the nearby destroyers turn toward the burning wreck and shout, "Banzai! Banzai! Banzai!" At 05:10 a.m., Japanese torpedoes are fired to hasten her end, but she refuses to sink. It is not until 09:12 a.m. that the Hiryu finally, stubbornly, gives up the ghost and vanishes into the deep. Aboard the Nagara, the full horrific tally is laid before Nagumo. In a single day, he has lost 4 fleet carriers, the 4 that attacked Pearl Harbor. He has lost over 3,000 men, including his finest, most irreplaceable veteran pilots. He has lost over 248 aircraft. He has lost the initiative. At 02:55 a.m., the official order comes from Admiral Yamamoto, miles away on his flagship Yamato. Cancel the Midway operation. All forces will retire. Nagumo gives the command. The Kido Butai, or what is left of it, turns east, away from Midway, away from the enemy. They are, for the first time in the war, in full retreat. For Chuichi Nagumo, this is not just a tactical defeat. It is the end of his world. He had begun the day as the conqueror of the Pacific, the master of an invincible sword. He ends it as the man who lost the war. He sees the future with a terrible clarity. He sees the bottomless logistical strength of America, an enemy he has now awakened but can no longer stop. He sees the long, bloody, hopeless road back across the Pacific, ending in the firebombing of his homeland. He had stood on the bridge of the Akagi and watched his carriers burn. And in those 5 catastrophic minutes, he and the entire Empire of Japan knew with sickening certainty that they were doomed. Thank you for watching.